Mới đến đây hả? Cái slide này xong rồi cô ạ. Các nhóm thuyết trình hôm nay cô đã nhận được bài của em rồi nhé. So as we see, the subject matters of chapter 44 is about Martin's disappointment and bitterness when he understood the real nature of the invitation to dinner, or it means the real nature of the bourgeois society. And the sudden change in people's attitude towards him and his work performed made him so puzzled, because nothing of him or his work changed. And the most puzzling thing was that nothing of his work changed an iota. All the work performed were the same. So it seems to be a very strange phenomenon to Martin Eden. That's why during this chapter, the refrain of work performed obsessed him and maddened him. He was so puzzled because of the real nature of a society that he used to worship, a society where he found everything perfect. And in his mind, formerly, it was a heaven on earth, where people were very polite, very kind, well educated. However, now when he became one among them, he realized that all were far different from what he expected. The people in this society were actually very selfish, hypocritical, and money and fame worshippers. So the more he admired that society, the more puzzled he got. And especially he couldn't speak out his thoughts about the nature of that society. Everything just struggled only in his mind. So at the end of this chapter, Martin went down the street in a daze. He stopped at the corner and looked about him vacantly. "Well, I'd be damned," he murmured at last. "The old fellow was afraid of me." Next, let's talk about the work performed, which were unchanged, or which were didn't change an iota. The work performed refers to the work, to his works, to Martin Eden's works, including poems, stories, and novels. And he finished all of them in the past, and now they put his name on all newspapers. And this phrase, as we see, was repeated many times throughout chapter 44 in the talks between Martin and other people. The word perform was used as the important key to the problems, especially the paradox of the invitation to dinners. All of Martin Eden's work, including the Ring of Bells, the Puri and Pearl, as he told us he had done before he was looked when he was looked down on and criticized by other peoples around him. Mr. and Mrs. Moss, who else? His brother-in-law, Herman von Smith, and ông anh rể cả là ông gì nhỉ? Tự nhiên quên bén mất tên ông. And Bernard Higginbotham. Yeah. They are the works that Mr. and Mrs. Morse has condemned him for an idler and a shark, and through rules they had urged that he take a clerk's position in an office. And the verse of those works was called Obscene by Herman von Smith. The verse was called Obscene. But those works now brought Martin on all the newspapers. They stayed the same. They didn't change an iota. The work performed was the work that made people look down on him when he was a poor writer, when he had nothing to eat, when he had to face with starvation and poverty. And now those work that made people look up to him, and they could bring him and they brought him fame and a lot of money. So it becomes an obsession to Martin Eden, and it always haunts in his brain. Work performed is repeated. We can say it is repeated as a rhetorical means, as well as a key point of this chapter. It is repeated during the chapter. And with this phrase, it has Martin Eden, as well as we, the readers, find out the real nature of the bourgeois society. It was a society of money worshipper, And in such society, money is the most powerful, and it could buy and change anything in the society. So that is how we understand the word perform, a rhetorical means. A key point to the chapter. Martin Eden, of course, because he's the writers of such work performed. So he really wanted to be judged by his talents, by the how to say the true value of his work, not because the fact that they brought him money and fame. They wanted people to read them and really enjoy their value, the true value of his work, and admit his talent. However, they just respect him because he's famous and rich, because he's one among them, because each of them is one of the mob. He said. Đấy giống như một kiểu hội chứng đám đông, anh ta nói. Martin Eden nói, you are feeding me because it is the style of feeding just now, because the whole mob is crazy with the idea of feeding Martin Eden. So because each of those who invited Martin Eden to their house for dinner, just one of the mob who is crazy with the idea of feeding Martin Eden. So we also see the paradox in the invitation to dinners that maddens Martin Eden widely. It maddened him widely because when he really wanted dinners, no one gave them to him. And now, when he could buy 100,000 dinars and losing his appetite, dinner was thrust upon him right and left. So he was ignored by that society, by those people. When he was poor, they paid him no attention. When he was no one among in that society. And this seemed to be a familiar paradox happening in our real life. We know, we see that when we really need something, we cannot have it. But when we do not need that thing anymore, it will come to us strangely. But it is a familiar paradox happening in our real life. And in this case in the case of Martin Eden, when he was poor and lacked of course, essential things to survive, nobody helped him. He said that He remember the day. He remember the day. Oh, where's yeah, page 102. He remembered the day of his desperate starvation when no one invited him to dinner. That was the time he needed dinners, and when weak and faint for lack of them, and lost weight from sheer famine. That was the paradox of it. But that at that time, the eyes of other people, in the eyes of other people, he was just an idler and a shark. So of course they paid no attention to him. And now when he had a lot of money, he could buy 100,000 dinners. Invitation to dinners poured in on Martin Eden. And the people who once ignored and turned their back against Martin Eden now rushed to have Martin to their dinner. And Martin was really puzzled with that paradox. So at first, he couldn't understand the reason for the change in people's attitude. He got, but after that, when he got to understand the real nature of the invitation, he realized that they realized the nature of the society that he tried his best to enter. People just invited Martin Edens to their dinners for the sake of having him in their house. And because it was an honor to do so, because they were part of the mob. So the invitation came to Martin Eden at the wrong time. And they are not healthy invitations. They just want to show off to other people that they also have a relation with Martin Eden, a very famous writer, a rich one. That's why they invite him to their dinner. They are not healthy invitations. So when they asked you about the paradox of the invitation, first you have to prove that the invitations to dinners are the paradox of this chapter. Because when he was poor, people ignore and paid no attention to him. But when we had a lot of money, they invited him to their dinner. So it means that the invitation come at the wrong time. And they just need Martin Eden because of his his fame and his money, not because of the value of that man, because of himself or because of his talent. So they are unhealthy invitation. How the bourgeois society depicted in the chapter. So, because the subject matters of the chapter is Martin Eden's disappointment with the real nature of the invitation or the real nature of the bourgeois society. In this chapter, the bourgeois society is depicted, as you see clearly, through its standard of valuation, through its principle and the image of people living in it. Cái xã hội đó nó được mô tả rất là rõ ràng thông qua những cái chuẩn mực đánh giá người khác, đánh giá bằng tiền đấy, thông qua những cái nguyên tắc, thông qua những cái con người sống trong cái xã hội đó. First, let's see. In terms of standard of valuation, in bourgeois society, in this bourgeois society, everything, including love and men, everything is measured by money. Everything is valued according to money. Even a job or a thing, it is respectable only when it makes money. Because we see when Martin Eden was a writer without fame and money, his girlfriend Ruth and her family, and even Marion, that is his sister, all of them, they urge that Martin Eden takes a position in an office, and it means that they always insisted on his getting a job. So it means that when Martin was a poor writer who couldn't earn much money, he was considered as being unemployed, or in the novel, the author used the word an idler and a shark. So, and that is about a job. A job is also measured by money. If that job couldn't bring about money, so it means that people is considered as being unemployed or an idler, a shark. And the concept of money, the concept of love also seem not to exist in that society, because love couldn't bring in money. We see that Martin and Ruth love each other, but Ruth's family used to forbid Martin their house, and they broke the engagement. Ngay đoạn đầu Martin đã nói đến cái vấn đề đó, đúng không? Đây. At any rate, invited to dinner, he was by Mr. Moss, Ruth's father, who had forbidden him the house and broken off the engagement. So when he was poor, the concept of love seemed not to exist, because love couldn't bring in money. That's why they forbid him the house and broke the engagement. Martin was not accepted. Without money or fame, So obviously, fame and money is the criteria of which a man is valued, or it is they are the criteria used to value a man. And in that society, Martin bitterly realized that people had not cared to have him for himself or for his work, but just for the fame that was his, because he was somebody among them, because he had $100,000 or so. Không có tiền là cũng không có tình yêu gì hết, đúng không? Bị đuổi luôn, cấm luôn. Này, therefore, one thing was certain: the Moss had not cared to have him for himself or for his work. Therefore, they could not want him now for himself or for his work, but for the fame that was his, because he was somebody amongst men. And why not? Because he had $100,000 or so. And not only the Moss, but other peoples in that society. Secondly, the principle of that society is that the rich are always right. The truth in that society is controlled by fame and money. When Martin Eden became rich, we see that people accepted whatever Martin chose to say, even insulting and nonsensical things. Whatever he chose to say, they accepted. As we see, Martin said, này. Này. And now, when I speak, you check the thought unuttered on your lips and hang on my lips and pay respectful attention to whatever I choose to say. I tell you, your party is rotten and filled with rafters, and instead of flying into a rage, you hum and haw and admit there is a great deal in what I say. And why? because I'm famous, because I've a lot of money, not because I'm Martin Eden, a pretty good fellow, and not particularly a fool. I could tell you the moon is made of green cheese and you would subscribe to the notion. At least you would not repudiate it, but because I've got dollars, mountains of them. And it was all done long ago. It was work performed, I tell you, when you spat upon me as the dirt under your feet. You see, money was so powerful, so powerful. It had Martin Eden do anything, anything, even turn right to wrong, or vice versa, from wrong to right. Yeah, you see, I could tell you the moon is made of green cheese and you should subscribe to the notion. Or at least you would not repudiate it because I've got dollars, mountains of them. So powerful money is in that society. People with a lot of money can turn right to wrong, or wrong to right. So in that bourgeois society, we see money could defeat all the moral values. It could defeat all the moral values as well as how to say scientific knowledge. Đó. Kiến thức về khoa học cũng chả có tác dụng gì cả. The moon is made of green cheese mà, đúng không? Người giàu nói gì cũng được. So we see that the principle of this society is the rich are always right. How about people of that society are depicted? They are selfish, too practical minded, dishonest, hypocritical, and they had strong sense of money and fame. Let's see. We see that people in that society judged and respected Martin Eden, not because of himself, but for the fame and money that Martin Eden possessed. About the work performed, before they could bring fame and money to Martin Eden, they are called obscenes. But now they respected people in that society, respected that work performed, though they were the same. So we see that people's attitudes toward the work performed Martin Eden himself were totally different. With Herman von Smith, he announced that his wife had inspired the poem. Saw to it that the news reached the ears of a reporter and submitted to an interview by a staff writer who was accompanied by a staff photographer and a staff artist. He used to call the verse of sins. But when Martin and his work were well known, he announced that his wife has inspired the poem. In that society, nobody did Martin Eden any favor when he was poor, as we see. Nobody gave him dinner when he really needed dinners. When he went weak and faint for the lack of them and lost weight from sheer famine. But now when he became rich and famous, they rushed to invite him to dinner. Feeding him appeared to be a kind of honor and fashion to the people in that society. And more than that, people wanted to invite Martin Eden to their dinner because his fame and his fame would do good things for them. His fame would be useful and beneficial to them. We see Herman von Smith told his wife Marion that Herman von Smith chuckled in his little repair shop and decided to order a new leather. He said, he told Marion, better than advertising, and it cost nothing. So she suggested that we'd better have him to dinner. Trước đây thì không coi những cái bài anh viết ra gì, nhưng bây giờ thì tuyên bố là vợ mình gọi là inspire the poem, và họ bàn nhau mời anh ấy đến là bởi vì better than advertising, cái sự nổi tiếng của Martin Eden là một cái cách tốt để quảng cáo, tốt hơn cả quảng cáo, lại còn không mất tiền. It costs nothing đó, và không, tất nhiên là không phải chỉ có gia đình này họ nghĩ như vậy đúng không ạ? Đây là nói chung. So it means that people wanted Martin Eden not because his fame would do good thing for them and would be very useful and beneficial to them. Better than advertising, and it costs nothing. So in these comparisons, we see that Martin Eden was a means of advertising. He was like a means of advertising. And Herman von Smith, a brother-in-law of Martin Eden, just considered him as bait. Bait là cái mồi nhử, đúng không? Martin Eden được coi như là mồi nhử, quảng cáo mà. So these people were really opportunists were really opportunists. They only insisted on taking advantage of Martin and taking advantage of others. Lợi dụng người khác, ở đây là Martin. And his younger sister Marian was, we can see that he was dishonest to him. Dishonest như thế nào? Đây, rồi nhỉ. Đây. With tears in her eyes and her arms around his neck, Marian, at parting, told Martin how much she loved him and always had loved him. It was true. There was a perceptible hold midway in her exhaustion, which she glossed over with more tears and kisses and incoherent stammering, and which Martin inferred to be her appeal for forgiveness for the time she had lacked faith in him and insisted on his getting a job. With tears in her eyes, her arms around his neck, Marian told Martin how much she loved him and always loved him. We see that she was dishonest and hypocritical with very strong sense of money and fame. And not only Marian, but also many others in that society. People in that society were dishonest, hypocritical, and had strong sense of money and fame. There was a perceptible hold midway in her exertion, which she glossed over with more tears. Đúng không? Cô ấy ngập ngừng và rồi quả quyết, đúng không? Trong nước mắt nói kiểu như là trong sự xúc động vì không được mạch lạc của stammering, đúng không? Và Martin thấy được cái sự khẩn khoản trong cái giọng nói của cô ấy. Xin lỗi anh ấy khi mà đã không tin tưởng vào Martin, và cứ quả quyết là anh ta phải đi làm một cái việc gì khác nên đừng có mà viết lách vớ vẩn nữa đó. So we see that people in the bourgeois society were described to be very dishonest and hypocritical. Rõ ràng là rất là giả dối, đúng không ạ? They are part of the mob, đúng không? Họ là một trong số đám đông. Và inviting Martin Eden to their dinner is a fashion. And we see that those people, of course, when they are because they were dishonest and hypocritical, they had a strong sense of money and fame, so they of course did not have their own idea. They just followed the actions of other people. Follow other people without thinking, without understanding. Đó, và anh Martin nói rằng đây. You are feeding me because everybody else is feeding me. Đấy chưa? Đúng không ạ? They just followed the action of other people without thinking, without understanding. Because they are just part of the mob. You are feeding me because everybody else is feeding me. And because it is an honor to feed me, you are feeding me now because you are hurt animals, because you are part of the mob, because the one blind automatic thought in the mob mind just now is to feed me. Đó. Cứ như là một con rối, đúng không? Có gì người ta làm gì mình làm theo thế, chứ không phải là vì cái sự yêu thương gì cả. So we see that through the thought and feelings of Martin Eden, Jack London described successfully the picture of the bourgeois society. It was a society in which money and fame have the most power. And under the standard of valuation of this bourgeois society, everything is just by money, including job, man, and love. In that society, the principle is the rich are always right. People are selfish, practical-minded, dishonest, hypocritical. Chỉ nghĩ đến bản thân mình, lợi dụng mà. Rất là practical-minded, rất là giả dối. Trước đây thì coi thường, không coi ra cái gì, anh chết đói đến nơi rồi thì cũng kệ nó. Nhưng bây giờ thì xin lỗi thế nọ thế kia, khóc lóc rồi ôm ấp rồi thương anh thế nọ thế, cái lọ cái chai. Đó, rất là giả dối. So the subject matters. That is the disappointment, disillusionment, and bitterness of Martins. And the nature of the bourgeois society. See that the tragedies of Martin Eden is the tragedies of a real artist, of an artist. As a writer, Martin Eden designed to be valued for himself or for his work. But in this bourgeois society, standard of valuation is far different from that in his old world. Cái stand up of valuation ở trong cái xã hội của những cái người giàu có đó nó rất là khác biệt. Nếu như trong cái xã hội cái thế giới của anh ấy trước đây với những cái người bạn cũ, đúng không? Đâu rồi nhỉ? Đây. Bởi vì Martin Eden luôn luôn mong muốn là được đánh giá là bởi chính bản thân mình, chứ không phải là vì anh ta giàu có hay gì đó, đúng không? Nhưng ở xã hội này thì là như vậy, tiền là thước đo. That was the way bourgeois society valued a man, and who was he to expect it otherwise? He was proud. He disdained such valuation. He desired to be valued for himself and for his work, which, after all, was an expression of himself. That was the way Lizzie valued him. The work with her did not even count. She valued him himself. That was the way Jimmy, the plumber, and all the old gang valued him. That had been proved often enough in the days when he went with them. It had been proved that Sunday and Shellmouth Park, his work could go hand. What they liked and were willing to scrap for were just Martin Eden, one of the bunch and a pretty good guy. Then there was Ruth. She had liked, cô ấy đã từng, đúng không? She had liked him for himself. That was indisputable. And yet, much as she liked him, she had liked the bourgeois standard of valuation more. She has opposed his writing, and principally it seemed to him because it did not earn money. That had been her criticism of his love cycle. She, too, had urged him to get a job. It was true she refined it to position, but it meant the same thing. In his own mind, the old nomenclature stuck. He had read her all that he wrote, poems, stories, essays, etc. Đó. Trong cái xã hội, trong cái thế giới trước đây của anh ấy mà anh ấy sống, tất cả những con người, những bạn bè của anh ấy, đúng không ạ, đều yêu quý Martin Eden vì anh ấy là Martin Eden. Và kể cả cô Ruth trước đây cũng yêu quý Martin bởi vì anh ấy là Martin thôi, chính bản thân mình. Nhưng mà ở xã hội này người ta không như vậy, người ta đánh giá anh ấy bởi tiền, bởi sự nổi tiếng. Và Ruth dù là love Martin Eden, nhưng mà cô ấy gì ạ? She loved the bourgeois standard of valuation more. Cô ấy không thoát được khỏi cái xã hội đấy. Chúng ta thấy rằng đó là một cái xã hội mà gì đấy? People were too preoccupied of image, too scared of change. Những con người rất sợ thay đổi và rất coi trọng hình thức. Và Ruth là một trong số những con người thuộc cái tầng lớp đó. Cô ấy không khác tí nào, đúng không ạ? Trước đây cô ấy mến Martin Eden và sau đó cô yêu anh bởi vì là anh ấy cứ như một luồng gió lạ, rất mới mẻ, vì anh ấy là chính bản thân anh ấy rất khác lạ ở với cô ấy, cho nên là nhưng mà sau đó thì cô không vượt qua được những cái standard of valuation of that bourgeois society. She liked that standard of valuation more than Martin. So, money and fame were the most important thing to bourgeois people. We see that the tragedies of Martin's Eden was expressed through his obsessions, the obsessions of work performed. It always appeared in his mind, and he couldn't bear it in his mind. Martin's thought much about other people's change in attitude towards himself. But as we see, he never spoke out his thoughts. So he couldn't find anybody because he couldn't find anybody to share his thoughts and his feeling, even with his lover Ruth, because he knew that she had liked the bourgeois standard of valuation more. So Martin Eden seemed to be stuck between two worlds, the world of his previous life and the world of the rich. Anh ấy rõ ràng là bị mắc kẹt giữa hai cái thế giới đó, đúng không ạ? Không chia sẻ được với bên này cũng không chia sẻ được với bên kia. So we see that Martin Eden belonged to nowhere. He had nothing. Now he had nothing except money and fame. That is the tragedies of artists and talent in the bourgeois societies. Cho nên là có tiền cũng không sung sướng gì cả, đúng không? Nhiều tiền. Lúc đó thì không biết là người ta quý mình vì tiền hay quý mình vì mình. Chẳng biết được. Ở giai đoạn nào cũng vậy thôi. Không phải chỉ có cái thời xã hội lúc đó, đúng không? Cái xã hội tư sản lúc bấy giờ, mà bây giờ thì cũng thế. Giàu đuổi bạn sang đuổi vợ cái gì ấy. Không biết được thế nào tình cảm của con người. And that is about Martin Eden. After Martin, we have two more works. That is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and A Farewell to Arms. Về cái chuyện những cuộc phiêu lưu của Tom Sawyer thì các bạn ở trong này là có mấy chương nhỉ? 2 chương đúng không ạ? Chương 2 và chương 4. Các bạn sẽ đọc chương 1 và chương 1 vì nó rất là ngắn. Chúng ta sẽ phân tích cả chương 2 lẫn chương 4 vì nó đều về Tom Sawyer thôi, chả có gì cả. Và cái chuyện cuối cùng chúng ta đọc sẽ là Chapter 4, A Farewell to Arms. Thứ 7 này thì chúng ta sẽ học về Tom Sawyer đi. Và Tom Sawyer thì chúng ta cũng không cần phải tóm tắt giới thiệu gì nhiều thêm nữa. Thì chuyện đấy khả năng là các bạn đã đọc rồi không? Cấp 2, cấp 3 này đã đọc chuyện. Lớp chúng ta còn mấy nhóm nữa? Hình như là còn có 3 nhóm hay sao ấy. 2-3 nhóm gì? 3 nhóm. Ba nhóm thôi, 17, 18 và 19.